Hello friends, it's Mrs. Pennell here. It is time for science this week and I really want to show you what we are learning this week. So I'm going to start off straight away by sharing my screen and tell you that we are going to be learning about the seed dispersal, which means that we are finding out how seeds get about and start to grow in a different place. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we are going to be looking at this one. So here I am. So dispersal of the seeds. I'm going to move my face over there. It is important to already know how seeds develop and how they grow into plants. And we were talking about it last week. We talked about the plant life cycle. And if you remember, we had the seed, we were investigating them. We then learned that if you put the seed into the right conditions, if you put them in the ground, it will start developing. So a little seedling comes, a sprouting comes up and then turns into a seedling, which then turns into a plant, starts flowering, which then gets pollinated, it creates more seeds, then it turns into a fruit, and finally it dies. So that is the seed's life cycle, or a plant life cycle altogether. So it's important to know that, I'm going to write in that seeds develop when the conditions are right. So it means that it is warm enough for them, there's the right soil, there's enough water, oxygen, and all sorts of things like that. We already then know that seed turns into a seedling once it starts sprouting in all the right conditions, and so on and so on. So have a little chat with your grown-up or whoever is working with you today and see what do you both already know about the seeds and how they grow into plants. Then we are going to be looking at this story. It's called The Traveling Seeds and it's by Rebecca Bielawski. Now there is a PDF on your blended learning that you could be looking at and read it from there, or if you want another treat and watch me and hear me read the story, you could go back onto the YouTube page and there is a video of me reading the story for you where the pages are turning, which is really interesting, and it tells you all about how seeds travel. Okay, and that's what we are learning today. We are learning to consider how the seeds are dispersed, and we're going to be generate questions about the plant growth. All right, so well, we have got a lovely video link for you on the blended learning as well, and it tells you all about the pollination. So let's ask a question: why is it really important for a plant to be pollinated? And it's of course so that the flowers could be making seeds. To make a seed, a flower must be pollinated, and it's pollinated by the pollinating insects like bees or butterflies or beetles or any other insects as well. So there's like ants and all sorts of different ones. When you look at the video, there's lots of different options there. So, and the pollen from the male part of one flower travels then to a female part of the other flower, and that's where the seeds are made. And it's like an advert, so the petals and the bright colors, they are like an advert to attract various animals, which will then carry the pollen from one flower to another. And the flowers then turn into fruiting bodies, like, for example, a tomato seed, tiny tomato seed, turns into big tomato plant with those yellow tiny flowers on, and those tiny seeds and those tiny flowers then turn into masses and masses of tomatoes, which are in red in color normally. Okay, so that tiny fuzzy little seed is turned into a mass of different size tomatoes. Okay, so that's an interesting thing to know. So once it's been pollinated, the seeds are developing. Okay, but think of ways that the plant could get its seeds dispersed. Now in the book, if you were reading and listening to it, one of the ways was animals eating it and then pooping it up. Okay, so it's nothing funny about it. It's a normal thing. Animals eat things and then they poop out, and you know, it happens all the time. So then obviously the seed finds a nice new location and starts growing again, and a new plant appears. So the same thing could be happening if we, let's say if it's a really windy weather and you've got a bunch of dandelion seeds. So what happens then? So could the wind be blowing them away? Okay, sometimes the plants, especially if the seed shells is really kind of like heavy and kind of like thick, they sometimes explode. Exploding is another way of seeds dispersing themselves. So we've got blowing, we've got exploding, we've got animals just eating it. We got just simply just falling off the tree. Think of the conkers every year, conkers falling down from the tree. So falling is another way of seeds dispersing themselves. Also, if you are noticing all the plants near the rivers or lakes or sea, then they also are floating to the new places, especially in the jungle where the jungle plants and the tropical plants are near the rivers there, so they just carry on to the next location. And also sticking. If you're thinking of the burr plants or even the conkers, they just get stuck, don't they? They've got the spiky little things there and they get stuck in your clothes, and the same thing happens when they get stuck to animals or birds, and they just fly off into a different place and then they just go on to grow there. So there's lots of different things, and a good way to remember it is by using this mnemonic. So B-E-E-F-S, beefs. So blowing, eating, explosion, floating, falling, and sticking. And one thing to keep in mind is that it's important for plants to be able to travel. It's because it's better for them to be dispersed all over the place than on one heap on the ground. Do you know why that is? It's because if they just stick together on one big heap, the seeds do not get enough air and there's not enough space for them to find a really good location to try and grow. So this way the seeds will avoid the overcrowding and they don't compete with each other. So they all got lovely, luscious grounds to grow, and that way they are going to be successful in their growing. So your job this week is to cut out all these pictures of different seeds and seedlings that I have got here for you. And you need to be sorting those seeds into the beefs. Okay, so we've got blowing, eating, exploding, falling, floating, and sticking. So while you do that, have a little think. So how do you think these seeds are dispersed? What sort of clues can you spot on the seeds? Would animals eat them and then poo them out? Do they stick to animals and travel with them? Do they look like they could be perhaps floating off in the water? Could they explode, or would they be blowing off in the wind? So have a little think before you start putting them into the right places, and have a real close look on the pictures, see what sort of clues you can find. So let's do one together. So I'm going to be choosing, I like this one. So I'm going to do the dandelion first. So if I just stretch it out a little bit and we can just have a real close look at it. So this dandelion here looks really fragile, really light. It's got kind of like soft, spiky bits here. It looks a bit like a helicopter maybe. So it could be spinning in the air quite easily. And then the bottom bit is here, is where it could get stuck to the ground and start growing. I wonder if blowing would be a really good way for dandelion seeds to carry on to their new location. So I am going to be popping this one under my blowing column. So this is the way you need to do it. So have a really close look. What sort of clues can you spot, and then put them into the right places. Well done. And finally, once you've done all of that, make your own helicopter seed. Just like a sycamore seed or a maple tree seed, they look just like that and they twirl around in the air. So you could make it out of paper and you could go and try it out outside and see, have a chat with your grown-up about what is about this design that makes this sort of a seed really good at moving, and wonder about how far could it actually go. So maybe you could test out. So if you were to spin it around in the air, how far it would travel. I know it's only a piece of paper, so it's completely different to an actual seed, but it's a good way of practicing and looking at it closer. Right, and by the end of this lesson, you definitely would have learned how the pollination works, what's the purpose of the seed, and what does dispersal and disperse mean when we're talking about seeds and their life cycle. And then you would have also hopefully have made a seed helicopter to test out. And that's it for science this week. I'm sure you're going to have tons of fun. I know that you enjoyed this the science lesson last week, so hopefully you enjoyed this week as well. So let me stop the sharing of this and give you a good thumbs up for being so brave and doing all your learning from home. And hopefully I'll get to see you very soon at school and we do the science lessons from now on together. So have fun. Enjoy your science, enjoy being outside because the weather is hopefully nice, and get making the seeds, helicopter seeds, and get sorting the seeds out. Have fun. See you later. Goodbye.